Alright, what is poppin', people? We're back, and I haven't done a good old-fashioned NU showcase in, I think, a decent bit of time, right? I did the cap showcase for Astrolodal, I think probably roughly a week or so ago. But obviously, as all things do, we must return to our roots. And so now we got an NU-related one. And we're going to be doing Blastoise. I think Blastoise is a pretty interesting Pokemon to cover, because when we first got it, I think everyone just kind of looked at it as a meme. Because in comparison to things like Barbaracle, Slurpuff, Lanoon, for instance, these were just significantly better setup sweepers. And when you're trying to compete with Barbaracle, something that, you know, is quite literally the same thing as you, Shell Smash sweeping, it's really difficult because there's just not really any way you could separate yourself from it. But as time's gone by, and other setup sweepers that are a lot more potent than Blastoise have been banned, Blastoise has been able to find a way to solidify its spot in the tier as an alternative, not an alternative, but as one of the best setup sweepers for these hyper-offensive dual screens builds. There are a few reasons for that, right? So, for starters, Blastoise's natural bulk, if we want to look at that right here, it's got 79, 100, 105 bulk. That's really fucking good! And when you're putting an offensive Pokemon with that good of natural bulk, a really good defensive typing in Mono Water, behind dual screens, it becomes really problematic to try to take down. And when you combine that with Substitute, it can be really problematic for some of these passive Pokemon that rely on status, like, say, a Vaporeon or a Gastrodon, or maybe a Mantine even if it's running Toxic, to try to take you down. They just can't, and you turn Pokemon that would be otherwise cohesive checks into just simply setup fodder. Pokemon that you could easily set up to +6 special attack with, and you could run Rough Shot all over a team. Even if it means you're having to try to hit Pokemon through resistances, at a point, it just doesn't matter. And another really convenient thing about Blastoise is the speed tier. In NU, the most common choice scarf user is Mienshao. It's 2 speed points slower than Blastoise, even with a modest nature, and that's really helpful. Base 85 switch attack is not very good, right? And so the fact that you're still able to go for that extra damage boost through your nature is really helpful for Blastoise. Now, when you look at the set, this is pretty much what you're always going to see. Surf and Ice Beam is overall the best coverage, because you really do want Ice Beam to hit Grass types and Dragon types. You can see Dark Pulse occasionally. It improves your matchup a fair bit against Mantine and Vaporeon, and the big thing for those is that they've got Haze. That's really it. I think part of it is Cresselia in the tier, obviously, right? I think that's what most people would cite you running Haze on those bulky water types for. But in my opinion, I think Haze is a lot more mandatory on those for Blastoise, because it runs Substitute so frequently that not running Haze can end up just making you useless and leaving you, if you're like Vaporeon, to just flip turn out or just spam Scald and hope. You do see some specially defensive Vaporeon, and yeah, those match up a little bit better, but they don't beat Dark Pulse Blastoise long term. And so that's why you do see it occasionally popping up. And I've even seen some hyper offense teams just say, I don't need Substitute, I want to maximize my screen's turns. I want to be, you know, attacking from behind dual screens as frequently as possible. And so they do opt for multiple coverage options. There are, of course, perks to this. It means that you can always hit bulky water types for at least neutral, and you always retain super effective coverage against dragon types, a la Goodra, Dragalge, etc. But you lose the safety from Substitute. And that's not the worst thing. Again, we talked about how a lot of the bulky water types, or at least Mantine and Vaporeon, they run Haze anyway. But when you're looking at the passive Pokemon in the tier that you can set up versus, like you can get a sub up versus, do you really want to be giving something like, say, I mean, hell, let's take another bulky water type. Do you want to be giving Gastrodon the ability to Toxic you? Do you want to be giving something like Gliscopod the ability to Revenge Kill you with First Impression? And obviously the same thing would go for a Choice Banded Flygon. I end up feeling a lot of the time that Substitute just ends up being a lot better for those reasons. And if we're going to look at some counterplay to Blastoise, as we pretty much just established, the Cal you're always going to see it on a team. It's always hyper offense, really. I've seen some balance builds employ Shell Smash Stoys. I haven't been a fan. I feel like you lose a lot of its luster, frankly, without just all these other setup sweepers to overwhelm the opposition, but hey, it works. And so we look at, you know, counterplay, right? We talked about Haze on Vaporeon and Mantine. It's quite possibly the best filler move, I think, for both of these. With Vaporeon, you end up running into some issues, because you do want to consider moves like Toxic, you want to consider Heal Bell, because those are just, you know, really good moves. But I end up feeling like Haze is just so much better in this meta for Vaporeon. And with Mantine, you know, what else you're considering? It's going to be like Air Slash and Toxic. Those are definitely good, but I do really like the insurance that having Haze provides you with. And then, when you want to look at other bulky water types that do check Blastoise, I do think you want to consider Gastrodon. Potentially, like, Spadef Gastrodon's not unheard of. I think a lot are physically defensive right now, just because, you know, Tyrantrum is viewed as a massive problem in wake of Beware's ban. And so you do see this a lot more frequently than you used to. But Spadef Gastro still exists, just some modicum. And while a lot of the time it is just substitute fodder for Blastoise behind dual screens, if it's not behind dual screens, then, you know, you could always attack it. And if it's not running substitute, you can at least get a poison off, and you do prevent it from hitting you with its strongest move, which is going to be its Stab Surf. And so that helps. And we even got our Araquanid, which it's got a lot of natural special bulk. And at least with Leech Life, it can kind of contend with Blastoise. Especially if you're not Dark Pulse Blastoise, Araquanid is a massive problem to try to get by. I think you have to boost I think you always have to have 2 boosts off to be able to really do anything with Surf. And I believe a lot of the time it is contingent on you getting into your Torrent boost. And while your opponent doesn't want to ever have to do that, if they can force you to Torrent, and then if they've got, like, I don't know, a first impression flag on in the back, then that is at least something. And now we're going to transition to grass types. Now again, with some of these we are talking like, depending on set, they check. Delmise is a Pokemon that a lot of people have been using a little bit more. It's a Pokemon that we, you know, polter-proof, you know, run itemless on at times to give you a Poltergeist immunity, which is really helpful for handling things like Golurk, for instance. And a lot of people have been experimenting more with, I'll just put the 4 there, with, not Brave, especially defensive sets though, because they can take a hit from Blastoise even when boosted, and then respond with a Power Whip. And if Blastoise is not behind dual screens, I believe you do, like, handily KO it. And so that's good. And you can also see Roserade run certain bulkier sets. I don't have a specific benchmark in mind to show off here, but Roserade's natural special bulk is really good, all things considered. And so you can tank a +2 hit, especially if it's a Dark Pulse, and then just respond with a Giga Drain. And then even Virizion, it's not a great mon, but if it's Surf, Dark Pulse, no Ice Beam, then you can contend with Stoys that way. And again, if we want to talk about Pokemon that contend with non-Ice Beam Blastoise, then I think these Pokemon that resist water, Dragon types, and even Toxicroak, and also that don't mind Dark Pulse are worth considering. You know, Guzzlord, it ain't gonna take much from boosted Surf until, again, Torrent range. But even some Guzzlord do run AV, I've seen, or just bulkier sets in general, and those do take on Blastoise really well. I think even if it's boosted and has Ice Beam, you don't faint to a +2 Stoys. You're not doing a whole lot back, because generally all you're going to have is knockoff for your main damage, and if Blastoise uses its White Herb, then that ain't going to do too much. But it's, you know, it's a check. Some of these Guzzlord run Toxic as well, so if you're catching a Stoys that's not behind a sub, you can at least go for that. And of course, Dragalge, another generically really specially defensive Pokemon, and that resists Surf, and if it's not Ice Beam Blastoise, could take a hit, potentially KO a Draco Meteor, depending on circumstances. And Goodger's pretty much the same deal. And you have Toxicroak. Now, it's not particularly common at this moment. I think with Beware and Pangoro banned, you might see more of it. But at the same time, Life Orb Mienshao still exists if you want to run that Wall Breaker route, as do Machamp and Surfetch, which I think might stand a better chance at rising up instead of Croak. It's hard to say. I think a lot of whether or not Toxicroak would rise in prominence is, I mean, contingent on how useful Dry Skin is, and I think there's a case to be made that it's not bad. I feel like Toxicroak always derives a lot of its niche from how much it can get out of its ability to just take advantage of the bulky water types of a tier. And since Gastrodon is, in my eyes, the best bulky water type, it's kind of hard to do. But this is Blastoise. If you want to see like a team with Stoise on it, I made this team right here. I wanted to build around like Rosalie Berry, DD Tyrantrum. I'm sure there's a better item, but I just looked at my team and I was like, huh, my only mon that deals with fairy types at all is a Salazzle, so let's have another way to deal with them. And also because I just don't trust Head Smash to hit. Firstly, here's the standard Blastoise set. We got dual screens Teleport Xatu. And I really like Teleport Xatu alongside Blastoise. The main reason being, I don't ever want to hard switch into Blastoise and have my opponent just throw off a Toxic for no apparent reason. I really don't want that. So we got Teleport. That guarantees the safe entry. Focus Sash 3 attacks Salazzle with Nasty Plot. I think this set's fucking fantastic right now. We got Life Orb, Sword Sense Mienshao, and then just the Rocks Hyper Offense Celebi set with Healing Wish. Absolutely ripped this set from Davon's team. No shame at all in admitting that. That's gonna be it. And yeah, there's just a whole bunch of teams. I think Blastoise is a really dangerous Pokemon in this meta. I want to see it rise in the next VR update, which will probably be happening this weekend, so stay tuned for that. Because I think it kind of defines Hyper Offense setup sweepers right now. I would say that it is... I'd probably say it's the most dangerous consistently. Because you got a lot of other dangerous ones too, like NP Salazzle, DD Flygon. But I feel like Stoise is a lot more limited in terms of what can consistently answer it. Whereas these other Pokemon have a few more widespread countermeasures. They're just ways to play around them. Yeah, that's gonna be it. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I want to do a laddering session soon. But every time I ladder, I like get one game and I'm just like, wow, that was the most miserable experience of my life. So I've just been kind of taking things slowly in the hopes that I can get my, positivity towards the ladder back. The amount of positivity I could have towards the ladder is pretty limited, but we'll see. And maybe I'll be doing something with friends soon. We'll see how that goes. Thank you guys for watching, though. I hope you guys are having a lovely day. Morning, evening. I don't know what time it is for you, but you know what? Enjoy it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.